There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and final, where you decide, I'm done explaining myself. Not because you're angry, not because you're bitter, but because you finally realized something powerful. The people who understand you don't need explanations, and the people who demand them will never be satisfied. You stop over-clarifying. You stop justifying your silence. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. And in that moment, you reclaim your energy. Let me ask you something. How much of your life has been spent trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you? That's the trap. That's the drain. That's the endless cycle of giving, explaining, defending, all to earn peace from people who thrive on your discomfort. But when you stop playing that game, everything shifts. You become harder to manipulate. You become less reactive. You become untouchable. Because suddenly, your self-worth isn't up for discussion. Your choices don't need permission slips. Your values aren't open for debate. And it confuses people. It frustrates them because your silence exposes their noise. They say you've changed. You've become distant, colder. No, you've just become clear. Clear about who deserves your explanations. Clear about what conversations are worth your breath. Clear about the power of simply walking away. And when you walk away, you don't slam the door. You just stop holding it open for people who were never meant to walk through it. There's a hidden exhaustion no one talks about. The kind that comes from constantly having to explain who you are, why you didn't respond right away, why you chose solitude over company, why your dreams don't look like theirs, why you don't react the way they expect you to. It's not just tiring, it's soul-draining, because every explanation is a quiet negotiation, a trade, your energy for their temporary comfort. And over time, those little trades add up. You lose pieces of yourself trying to be digestible. You dilute your truth trying to be likable. You bend just a little, again and again, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you've explained yourself into a version you don't even recognize. And here's the twist. The more you explain, the less they respect you. Because people don't value what's always available. They don't listen to what's always defending itself. They don't hear truth when it's constantly wrapped in apology. If you're starting to feel this in your chest, good. That means this message is for you. Don't scroll. There's a reason the most powerful people say the least. Not because they're arrogant, but because they understand that clarity needs no validation. They don't need to be understood by everyone. They need to be at peace with themselves. So ask yourself this. Why are you still trying to convince people who aren't even listening? Because the day you stop explaining yourself isn't the day you become cold. It's the day you reclaim your voice, not to debate, but to decide. And decision is power, silent, focused, unshakable. Every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't really care to understand, you hand them a piece of your peace, not because they deserve it, but because you've been conditioned to believe that being good means being understood, that your worth depends on how well you can justify your decisions, your distance, your boundaries, your silence. But what if it doesn't? What if the real power isn't in being understood, but in being okay with being misunderstood? So let me ask you, how many times have you over-explained something just to avoid disappointing someone? Because that's what most explanations are. Not conversations, but defenses. You're not sharing, you're bracing. You're not connecting, you're protecting. Protecting yourself from judgment, from rejection, from the sting of, they don't get it. But here's the truth. They're not supposed to get it. Because your life is not a group project. Your healing is not up for public review. Your boundaries don't need a footnote. And the moment you realize that, you stop giving away power with every sorry I didn't respond. With every, I know it's weird, but with every nervous smile that masks your truth. You stop shrinking. And when you stop shrinking, people get uncomfortable. Because now you're no longer explaining. You're simply deciding. You're choosing your time, your space, your values, without needing approval from people who were never meant to hold that authority in the first place. And that shift? That's not selfishness. That's sovereignty. You weren't born to be understood by everyone. You were born to be real. Silence doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you no longer feel the need to explain every feeling. And that's what scares people. They're used to emotional transparency being a currency. They expect you to show your wounds to earn their empathy. to cry loud enough for your pain to be validated, to overshare in order to prove that you're still human. But the man who stops explaining himself, he doesn't stop feeling, he stops performing, he still feels deeply, he still loves fully, but now it's on his terms, quiet, intentional, controlled. He no longer gives his emotional world away in bits and pieces, just to keep everyone else comfortable. Here's where most people tune out. Don't. Because this is where it stops being about them and starts being about you. Because when you stop explaining, people say you've changed, that you're too quiet, too cold, too private. But what they really mean is, I can't control you anymore with my curiosity. I don't have access to your mind like I used to. You're no longer leaking your thoughts for me to interpret. And that shift is terrifying to those who've grown addicted to knowing your every move. You're no longer giving away previews of your inner world, no longer narrating every decision like you owe someone a backstory, no longer broadcasting your pain to prove your sincerity. Now you speak only when necessary. You explain only when it serves a purpose, and when it doesn't, you walk away, calm, unapologetic, free, because your truth doesn't need volume, it needs alignment. And once you find that, explaining becomes obsolete. There's a calm that comes when you stop explaining yourself. Not a loud, victorious moment, but a subtle, quiet shift. You start speaking less, observing more, and suddenly everything makes sense. You see the games, the guilt tactics, the emotional manipulation hidden in so many harmless questions. Why didn't you come? Why are you so distant lately? Why don't you just say what you mean? And you realize they don't want answers. They want access to your mind, to your energy, to your soul. But now you've closed the door, not out of anger, but out of clarity, because you've learned something powerful. Not everything needs a reply. Not every question deserves your energy. Not every accusation warrants a defense. You don't owe everyone a version of you that makes them feel okay. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself truth. You owe yourself you. And in that space of non-explanation, you begin to rebuild your identity, not based on reaction, but intention. You're not being cold. You're being collected. You're not shutting down. You're shutting out the noise. And in a world that feeds on drama, that kind of silence is revolutionary. So if this message landed somewhere deep inside you, if you felt a quiet yes while listening, then honor it. Like this video, subscribe for more content that doesn't scream, but speaks, and share it with someone who's always felt the need to explain themselves to feel seen. Let them know the power isn't in being understood, it's in understanding yourself. The more you stop explaining, the more people panic, not because you're doing something wrong, but because they no longer have access to control you. When you used to explain everything, they knew how to respond. They could comfort you, guilt you, manipulate you, or dismiss you. It was predictable. It was safe for them. But now you're quiet. Now you nod. Now you say, I understand, and walk away. And this is the moment, right here, where people start losing their grip on you. Pay attention. Because silence breaks patterns. It interrupts cycles. It removes the emotional oxygen from conversations built to trap you. People don't know how to argue with a man who no longer defends himself. They don't know how to guilt trip someone who simply says, I hear you, and moves on. They don't know how to control someone who doesn't explain his decisions anymore. You become unshakable, not because you're cold, but because you've realized that most of the noise was never yours to fix. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop defending your values. You stop narrating every internal shift for the comfort of people who never intended to grow with you. And guess what? That's when your real power starts showing up. You start choosing peace over proving, stillness over performing, truth over being liked. You begin to own your life, quietly, completely, unapologetically. You don't owe the world your reasoning. You owe yourself your freedom. And that freedom, it's loudest when you stop speaking and just start becoming. There's a difference between staying silent because you're afraid and staying silent because you've outgrown the need to be heard. When you stop explaining yourself, people will assume you're hiding something, that you're cold, that you're closed off, that something must be wrong with you. But the truth is far simpler. You're just done. Done trying to convince people who never saw you clearly in the first place. Done shrinking your voice to fit their understanding. Done giving away your peace in exchange for temporary acceptance. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you explained something not because you wanted to, but because you didn't want to be judged. Because judgment is the real leash. It's what keeps people explaining long after the conversation's over. They play it back in their minds, wondering if they said the right thing, the polite thing, the normal thing. But once you stop fearing judgment, the leash snaps, and in that snap, you step into something radical, a life on your own terms. Now, you're not answering every question, not giving people a map to your emotions, not offering updates like your life is a newsletter. And yes, it confuses them. Because people have built entire relationships on access, not intimacy. They don't want to know you. They want to manage your responses. But when you choose silence, you choose sovereignty. You're no longer performing a version of yourself that makes everyone else comfortable. You're simply being, whole, present, rooted. You don't disappear. You refuse to explain your presence. And in a world obsessed with visibility, that kind of calm presence becomes power. When you stop explaining yourself, something strange happens. People start showing you who they really are. Some lean in closer. They respect your silence. They adjust to your energy, not your performance. Others get loud, uncomfortable, even aggressive, because your silence is a mirror. And most people aren't ready to look. They don't know how to interact with someone who doesn't overshare, who doesn't fill every pause with apologies or justification, who isn't trying to be liked. And in that quiet, you begin to see things clearly. The ones who only stuck around for access disappear. The ones who loved the version of you that explained everything fade out. And what's left? You, raw, unfiltered, real. Here's the twist. Don't miss this. Your silence isn't what pushes people away. It's what reveals who was never truly there. That revelation hurts at first. You start questioning yourself. You wonder if maybe you've gone too far, if you've become too distant, too quiet, too much. But give it time, and you'll realize that the only thing you did was stop performing. You stopped making yourself small, stopped packaging your emotions in ways that made others comfortable, stopped giving away clarity for the illusion of connection. And in that stillness, something deeper is born. Self-respect, self-trust, self-ownership. Now, you no longer chase. You no longer explain. You no longer beg to be seen, because you finally see yourself. And once you do, there's no version of you that will ever be satisfied with being misunderstood just to be accepted. There's a quiet kind of confidence that comes from no longer needing to explain. It's not loud. It doesn't need applause. It just is. You walk into rooms differently. You speak less, but every word lands heavier. You're not trying to be understood. You're just being clear. And that clarity, it's not arrogance. It's self-respect. You don't expect everyone to get you. You don't need to convince them. You're not afraid of silence anymore. Because now it feels like power. You begin to filter your energy, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You realize that not every connection is sacred. Not every audience is worthy of your story. But let me ask you, when did you stop trusting that your presence was enough? Because somewhere along the way, most of us learn to overcompensate. We think we need to fill the space, to explain our past, to justify our plans, to soften our truth. But now, you're unlearning that. You're no longer asking for permission to be who you are. You're no longer tiptoeing around other people's comfort zones. You're no longer watering down your voice just to be heard. You've realized something essential. If your truth makes people uncomfortable, it's not your job to make it more digestible. It's their job to deal with their reaction. And this shift changes everything. You no longer fear being called difficult. You no longer rush to correct someone's misunderstanding of you. You no longer let guilt rewrite your choices. This is what people don't understand about those who go quiet. We're not retreating. We're refining. We're not closing off. We're cleaning house. We're not hiding. We're healing. On our terms, in our time, without performance. And once you touch that kind of stillness, you realize that most of your old explanations weren't conversations. They were self-negotiations. And now, you don't negotiate with your truth anymore. You don't have to explain why you're healing, why you're quiet, why you've changed, why you're no longer available for the chaos you once tolerated. You don't have to write essays about your boundaries. You don't need to justify your growth. You don't owe anyone a tour guide through your evolution. You're not being distant. You're being disciplined. You're not cold. You're clear. And that clarity has cost you. You've lost people. You've lost comfort. You've even lost parts of yourself that were addicted to approval. But in return, you gained yourself. And now, you carry something most people never touch. A life that's yours. A voice that's yours. A truth that's yours. So if you're still watching, let me say this. Maybe it's your time too. Maybe it's time to stop defending your peace, to stop performing your worth, to stop explaining a life they were never meant to understand. Maybe it's time to just live. Not louder, not bigger, but truer. Because your power was never in how well you could explain yourself. It was in your willingness to walk away from everything that asked you to. And now that you've walked away, keep walking. And if this message lit something inside you, like the video. Subscribe for more moments of quiet truth in a world full of noise, and share it with someone who's tired of justifying their becoming. Let them know they're not wrong. They're not broken. They're just done explaining.